So, okay, normally this is okay. So, welcome everybody. Let me officially start. So, welcome everybody. Welcome here. A World Virtual Tours. So, this is part of the Free Academy, and this is the third installment of the series One Painting, One Story, which in hindsight is not really a good title because there are many stories, too many stories, related to just one painting. But so who knows if I will make another series with a better title. But so just to remind you, this is now also live on YouTube, and it's will be available on YouTube for a certain amount of time. I don't know exactly how long, but so you can also just look here, because here, of course, on the World Virtual Tours channel, you can also at the end, you will be able then to ask your questions. And yes, what else do I have to say? So my name is Patrizia. I'm an art historian and an archaeologist. And before I start with my presentation, I just wanted to remind you so that next week will be the last installment of this series. And so then I will talk about a painting. Probably nobody has ever heard of this painting, but so there's a lot to discover. And also Thursday, it will be the last installment of the Free Academy series about Assisi. And so I will be inside the St. Francis Basilica. And so I will stream live from inside the Basilica. I had to get a special permission for this. And of course, I have to do it, during daytime. So it will be a different time. And that tour or that presentation, so from inside the church, will not be available for a long time. So very short time on YouTube, because there are copyright issues. So, it was not easy to get this permission. They allow me to do it something like once a year. But okay, so that was the introduction. So let me now close the chat. And so at the end, I will open it again. And so today we are not really in a hurry, I think. Okay, close the chat, and then I will start with my presentation. Okay, and so of course this is World Virtual Tours Free Academy course, One Painting, One Story. This is the third installment, and we're going to talk about a painting in Siena in Tuscany. So you know that World Virtual Tours is of course only based on donations. So if you at the end you think it was worth it, you can always leave something. I will share the link also in the chat. And here today we're going to talk about Ambrogio Lorenzetti, or better, what he painted inside the town hall of Siena. Yeah, this is a very bad picture, I know, but it was very difficult in the end to find good pictures of these paintings. I spent a lot of time only to look for paintings with details, and at the end I had to resort to a book to find certain details, because on the internet you can find everything, but so it was very difficult. And so the painting in reality is 3 walls painted in fresco of one room, and it's called, or today we call it, the Allegory of Good and Bad Government. And it's in the Palazzo Pubblico, so the town hall in Siena. And so Ambrogio Lorenzetti, just to give you a very short introduction, so he was really from Siena. He was born in Siena. He died in Siena. He had a very famous brother that was Pietro Lorenzetti, who is, in the end, he became more famous. So Pietro Lorenzetti was more famous than his younger brother Ambrogio. And we don't know if that is a reason that at a certain point in his life, Ambrogio Lorenzetti is going to leave Siena and he's going to Florence. Now, you have to know, Florence and Siena, that's not really a good combination. But, he went there and he made it into the register of the Painters Guild. So in those days, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. You see, Siena, of course, he couldn't die before he was born, so it has to be 1348. Of course, he died in the year 1348. I apologize. So 1348, he died with the, during the big plague, of course, in Siena. But so in those days, so you see, we are in the beginning of the 14th century when Ambrogio Lorenzetti is an adult. So he is in Florence, and in Florence, he's going to be a member of the Painters Guild. Now, in those days, that really, I mean, it didn't really exist as an own guild. So the painters, they didn't have their own Painters Guild. They were members of the, what they called the speziali, so the apothecaries, so the people who would mix herbs, for example, or mix products, who as a symbol had a mortar, of course, where they could grind things. And so also the painters, the painters had this same tool. They needed the same tool. They also had to, mix and grind their pigments to prepare the paints. So, it was a bit similar as the apothecaries, you could say, similar tools. And so that's why at that point, so in the 14th century, there still wasn't an own painters guild. So the painters were members of that other guild. And we know Ambrogio Lorenzetti is going to become, a member in Florence. So I don't know if he hid his accent or something, but so he was a full member of the guild in Florence. But he won't stay there too long, so he will then come back to Siena in the end. And but this, for example, this painting that you can see here, this Madonna, is in Maestà, the Madonna on the throne. This is his the first known work of the younger Ambrogio Lorenzetti. And so if you look just at this painting, at first glance, you would say, it's a bit old-fashioned. You see the Madonna is represented completely frontally. She's looking straight ahead. She has a certain volume in her body, of course. Oh, yes, of course, you have to know, Ambrogio Lorenzetti, he was in Florence at the same time as Giotto. So Giotto was older than Ambrogio Lorenzetti, but, his influence was certainly very strong in Florence. Now, I can't tell you all the different things that Giotto brought into the painting because that would take us too long. If you want to know something about that, I think you can find it in the YouTube recording when I talk about Assisi. I think I talk a little bit about Giotto there. But so, at first glance, it seems perhaps a little bit old-fashioned, a little bit, not really dynamic. But if you look at the detail of the baby, that is really remarkable. But look at the gaze of the baby. So he looks to his mother in a very friendly way. See, he has really an expression in his eyes. And look at the hands. So these are the hands of a baby, especially his right hand. You see, babies are doing this, they're having this gesture. And then look at the hands of the Holy Virgin. They are not symmetrical. It's not the 5 fingers just next to each other as she's often represented. No, you see, she really grasps the baby. She has to hold him. So there's a kind of tension in her fingers. So here we see in this detail of baby Jesus, we see that, it was not just the classical representation that certainly he had seen already, something, the novelty of Giotto, who had brought this kind of more natural representation, who brought psychology into the paintings. So this little detail is, I think it's very, very nice. And then also, in the Galleria degli Uffizi, you can see these are 2 panels divided. And so here we have 4 stories of the life of San Nicola, of Saint Nicholas. And so just to show you, here we can see also the influence of Giotto again. So Giotto, he invented the way of telling stories in a natural way, and in a certain space. So this is quite typical. So that Giotto, he's going to invent these kind of spatial boxes, as we say. So here you can see a building that is open on certain sides. And so inside we can see what is happening. So he puts people really inside. And so there's a story, and this is the resurrection of a child. You can see on the staircase there is the devil. The devil had knocked on the door, and you can see that the child is, opening and answering the door. And then this devil takes the child with him, and under the stairs, you see it, the ground floor, he's going to strangle the child. And so you can see then on the right hand side at the bottom, you can see that the child is in bed, and the people are praying, please help us. And then it's a bit damaged, but on the left-hand side, on the top left, you can see Saint Nicholas, who's going to resurrect this child. You see, with like rays, like it's really like shooting the rays of life back to the child. So just to tell you, Ambrogio Lorenzetti, he was from Siena and so on, but unlike his brother Pietro Lorenzetti, and at the same time, or perhaps a little bit earlier, Simone Martini, who are the representatives of paintings, Senese paintings, as we say. So Ambrogio Lorenzetti had this Florentine influence. And this is another scene of San Nicola. Unfortunately, I didn't have a good picture, but here you can see this is St. Nicholas, who's going to become a bishop. But look how he represents the church, with this perspective again, so the people are really inside. And then there is this kind of, not a balcony, but a separation between the altar and the people. You can see that the altar is on a higher level than on the ground floor where the people are staying. So just to show you, it's he could really paint, but so that is an influence that comes from Florence. And then the last thing before we dive into the other painting is a Maestà. Here again, so when you see this, you could say, okay, the golden background, it's typical from Siena, but this is very inspired by Florence. If you see the Madonna, she is quite massive. Also the throne is really like an architecture, and you can see there are the three theological virtues. There's these three winged creatures that are sitting on the stairs, but on different levels. You see on three different steps, and then left and right you have all these different saints, and then also angels with musical instruments left and right. So it's quite busy. It's quite busy, and so the fact that you have all these halos. Now I don't have a detail. You see here these halos they are taking a lot of space in reality, but that is something that we can find also with Giotto. You see, this is a painting by Giotto. It's in the Santa Croce in Florence, and here you see it's the same kind of halo. This the composition of the halo, so with all these saints. So that is something that he probably had seen with Giotto. Then a lot of detail again here. You see, again, the hands of the Holy Virgin, and that hand of the child who grabs, the collar of the Holy Virgin. That is, again, really human. So really profound humanity that we find in Ambrogio Lorenzetti's paintings. And then and then one of the saints, it's at San Cerbone. So all these saints can be recognized on this painting by their attributes. And so the attribute of San Cerbone, it's a local saint, and are the geese. So that's funny that he puts them there. And then we have these three theological virtues. We have seen this already in other paintings, also with three colors. So red, white, and green. And so, they're sitting on different levels, you could say. So in the middle, that is a Charity, and more in reddish colors. In her hand, in one hand, she holds a heart. And then in the other hand, she has a little stick, a thin stick that is pointed. Because, so with this stick, she can, like, I don't know exactly how you say that, but she can sting people, to say, come on, you have to, to contribute, to charity. Then we have hope, hope completely in white. And then there is the faith. And you see faith, she's like the foundation, you see, of this tower that can be like a bell tower of a church. So this is faith. No, I think I got it. So this is, okay. And yes, I'm sorry, but now I was thinking with the colors, because the colors, so the green one is hope, is always hope. So I think here I inverted things. So the white one is the faith, and then the other one, the green one, is hope. So now I'm just noticing the colors. Okay, so we will see them again, the theological virtues. And here you have some details of the musician angels. But then let's go to Siena. In Siena, of course, you know, on the Piazza del Campo, the world famous Piazza del Campo, we have the Palazzo Pubblico. So the public palace. And for us today, the word public is, you know, a very common word. We use it a lot. But, you know, it comes, of course, from the Roman yeah, governments, you know, for the public. And so the government of Siena, for which this palace was built, was also a government who had to think of the public good. So the public good. And in Italian, we say, you know, public comune. And so we say the common good, the public good, and the common good. You have to know this building was finished around 1310. So in the beginning of the 14th century, it was built. And the bell tower was not built when Ambrogio Lorenzetti made his paintings. So the bell tower, you have to forget about the bell tower. And then, of course, also the central building, you know, they added bits and pieces later on. But so it was in this building in 1310, when it was finished, that we have several painters who got commissions. For example, this is one huge room. It's the room of the Mappamondo is a sphere, the earth, the earth sphere. And here we had Simone Martini. Simone Martini, who was the painter, together with Pietro Lorenzetti, but Simone Martini was really, the painter of Siena, also of the government. And so he makes, you see, this Maestas, or Holy Virgin, you see, it's huge. It's a huge wall in reality. And so that's a very famous room. So he makes this Madonna in 1310. So as soon as the building is finished, already, painters get commissions. And so this Madonna, as you can see also with a lot of saints, it's a typical Madonna of Simone Martini because he made several of these Madonnas in several municipalities in Tuscany. For example, in San Gimignano, you can find also a huge one. And this Madonna, so it's not just Madonna and saints, but you see, it's again a message. So here she says, or better, Jesus, he has a little piece of paper. And so he said, this is a message, again, for the people who are generally coming in this room, who are the people who will govern the town, of course. And they say, so the people who judicate on earth, who say justice on earth, they have to respect the justice. So, and then also again down below in this little text that now you cannot read, it's also the Holy Virgin. She says, the government has to work for the common good and for justice. So, these are messages for the people who have to govern the town. In the same room, you have this famous painting, and now I don't want to go into that, but also Simone Martini. But what you can see is a kind of circle on the wall beneath this knight. You have a circle. Well, that circle is the only thing that remains from this the sphere, the earth that was represented on that wall, but it was a kind of mechanism that you could turn around. So it doesn't exist anymore, but that's why they call it the room of the Mappamondo. And then just on the right-hand side, in the bottom corner, you have a doorway. Well, you have to go through that door, and then on the left, you arrive in this room. And so this is the Sala dei Nove, or the Sala della Pace. So Sala dei Nove, so the room of the 9. Who were these 9 people? Well, they were the governors of the town. They were the members of the government, so 9 members of the town government in Siena during the heydays of the Republic of Siena. So Siena, from the 13th century on, will become an incredibly prosperous town. There are several reasons for that, and by the way, I will be in Siena on the 1st of February. No, the 2nd of February. I'm sorry. The 2nd of February, I will be in Siena. So I will do a tour in Siena, not the highlights, but of the beaten path. So I'm just going to show you some other things of Siena. But, you cannot walk through Siena and not talk about the government they had during the heydays. So the development of Siena had already started earlier. During the 13th century, we have this we have a very important pilgrimage road. We have, of course, the prosperity of the whole countryside around it. We have the control over one of the ports, on the Tuscan coast, of several mines, like silver mines, for example. So there is, there's a lot of prosperity. And at a certain point, they will also, as in, many, many other towns, especially in central Italy, they will have this new type of government. So the government will not be made out of the nobility anymore. Until the 13th century, you were rich if you possessed land. And it was so the nobility, the landowners, they governed the towns. They decided everything. But during the 13th century, it's the middle class, it's the merchants, for example, the different guilds of different crafts. They are going to have a lot of money. And so they say, we want to have a say in the town government. And so there will be several different types of town government, but so in the end they will have this ideal government for Siena. It's the nove, so 9 people. These 9 people, they came from the 3 districts of Siena. So Siena is divided into terzi, so there are 3 terzi, so three thirds. And so there were 3 representatives from every third. And so there was, it's quite, would take a long time to explain the whole type of government. There could be its own presentation about this town government, so how they were elected and so on. But so, for example, it was forbidden: no nobility, no lawyers, no doctors, no religious people. So, they couldn't be elected in this town government. Of course, the nobility had a representation, but was a different kind of representation. So there were also other people who were in charge of the finances, and there were judges. There were several institutions, but in the end, it were the 9 people who had to govern, and they were in charge for only 2 months. And for 2 months, they didn't want people to have, too much stability in the government, in the sense they didn't want people to, it wasn't a profession. Afterwards, they had to go back to their job and to their homes. And so they didn't want them, of course, to have their own, to advantage their own, for example, their own guilds or their own families. So that's why every 2 months it changed. And so if you had been in charge, you couldn't be reelected for a long time. And also the members of your immediate family, they couldn't be elected at the same time. So in the end, this government lasted for 68 years, and there were 2,000 to 3,000 people who were part of this government. It's incredible. And so, it was a whole system of election, but so it worked incredibly well. Unfortunately, 1348, the big crisis with the big plague. Now, it seems there was, of course, immense loss of the population, but it seems that afterwards, the economy, they picked up quite quickly again. But, then there were, of course, internal divisions. And so you could say that was the beginning of the end of this type of government. And then there was a government of the 12, and then there were other types of government. So, but the heydays is really now, really now. From 1267 until 1355. Okay, so this is the room. So 3 walls. So the wall in the front, so letter A, that is where you have to start to read in reality. And so that is the how do you say, the good government. So an example of the good government, what the good government has to be. On the right-hand side, there's a huge wall that represents the effects of this good government. So when you have a good government, what happens? What happens in the town? What happens in the countryside? And on the left, wall C, we have the bad government and the effects of the bad government in the town and in the countryside. For this moment, you cannot go and visit it. So it's already more than a year that they started with the restoration. But before restoration, it took them almost a year. They just completed, it was in November, December, they completed the first year, and that was only dedicated to study. So they haven't touched anything. They just made all kinds of, pictures with all kinds of light and infrared and ultraviolet and all kinds of lightings and so on. So first they had a kind of photographical documentation, then chemical studies, architectural studies, because they had never really studied the walls themselves. For the first time, they tried to look what kind of wall this is. And so for the moment, this is the situation. You see, they made a scaffolding, but a kind of platform, really. So that the people who are studying are really at the height, they're really in front of these frescoes. And so they last year, I can't remember in January, but also now in December, it was possible for visitors, so only 10 at the time, you were allowed to go up there and have a look. And that was really incredible, to see those details, to be face to face with these painted characters, and especially to see the details, because those details you can never see when you are on the ground. But it was really interesting. And so now they have to start, because this study was made, of course, to try to decide what is best. Because you see, this is when you are there, you can't see it. I stood in front of this and I couldn't see it, but then when you go up there, there's always somebody who explains. And so they showed this photograph, and so you can only see this with a special light, with special cameras. But when you see this, it's quite alarming. It's quite alarming. So, well, and there's another one. So here, but this you could almost see with the naked, you could see it with the naked eye. So if you go very near, you can see the lines. You see the incised lines that are the preparation lines that the painter made before he would paint it. And so especially these architectures. So they're all houses that are painted, and so he needed lines. And so first he made these lines, he incised them in the plaster before he would paint it. And that's something that you can see sometimes with the naked eye. And so this is how you visit. So also in the summer, I think you had the opportunity. So if you are in Siena, if they open it to the public, it's really, really very interesting. And so let's go to the Allegoria del Buon Governo, so the Allegory of the Good Government. But that's a modern title. That's how we call it. So how did Ambrogio Lorenzetti call this? We don't know. But we know that, for example, in the 15th century, visitors, for example, also Lorenzo Ghiberti, the famous sculptor from Florence, he saw this and he called it War and Peace. He called it the effects of war and peace. So we don't really know how it was called. Probably didn't have a real title. But so this is how they call it today, the Allegory of the Good Government. And so this is the wall. I'm going to show you details just in a second. So this is the first wall. And wait, I have a better picture. I think I have some better pictures. But so, okay, what do we see here? Now, first of all, we see a seated lady on the left, and then we see a seated man on the right-hand side on this kind of throne, and then different characters. In reality, there are 3 levels. You see, there are some floating characters, you could say in the sky, also in the upper level. Then we have these 2 seated characters with some other persons next to them. And then you have the lower level. And so the lower level is the people, the people, but I'm not talking about the poor people or anything. It's just, the citizens. Above the citizens, we have justice, and we have the government. And then above justice and the government, we have virtues. And so I'm going to show some details. Oh, I'm sorry, it didn't go on. So here we have justice sitting on a throne. And with her hands, she's holding 2 plates of a scale. Now, the scale isn't held by justice herself, but by this winged lady above the justice. And that is wisdom, sapienza, but it's divine wisdom, probably. Probably because she's on the same level as the theological virtues on the other side. It's not written, there's only written sapienza, but she's a winged character, and so sapienza divina, so the divine wisdom. But so it's the wisdom that is holding the scale. And the scale is like coming into the head of justice, and then there are these 2 plates. And justice is holding these 2 plates. And on these plates, on the left, you have an angel, and on the right-hand side, you have an angel. And what are they doing? Well, on the left, that is the angel or the justice that punishes or rewards. So this is the justice that has to decide, is it good or is it bad? As you can see, with one hand, she decapitates somebody, and with the other hand, she puts a crown on someone. So that is one aspect of justice. And on the other side, we see the justice who makes everything equal, who wants equality. And this angel is giving some objects to two merchants. And so this kind of black box, that is, and I don't know how it's called in English. I tried to find it, but it's a measure. It's a measure for cereals. In those days, you had capacity measures, there were weights, of course, and there were also length measures. And the two things this angel is holding in its hand are also length measures. So it's the canna and the passetto. So two typical measures in the Middle Ages. So wait, I thought I had a picture of the measures, but if you go into the medieval towns, so in Siena, in Florence, in Perugia, in many towns, near the main square, so near the public squares, often you will find the representations of the measures, because every town had its own measures. Everybody had the foot and you could say the yard and the inch, for example, as a length measure, but they were not the same everywhere. So every town had its own standard. So, and it was not always the same. It could be quite variable. And so here she's giving the measures, because the measures, of course, they represent equality. So the merchants, they have to be just, in their measures. So they have to measure everything equally. So these are two aspects of justice. And then underneath justice, we have concordia, so concord. And here we have a genius stroke, I think, of Ambrogio Lorenzetti, because as you see, she in one hand, she has a rope. And the rope is directly connected to the scales of justice. You see, here on that scale, there's a rope, and here it's a bit damaged, but if you look carefully, you can see there are two ropes coming from the scales of justice. So, it's all connected. So the wisdom holds the scale from the plates of the scale. There are two ropes that are going to Concordia. And Concordia, she holds a tool in her hand that I looked it up, and they say a planer. It's something that to make wood plain. So you do it up, and yes, in Italian we say pialla, but so anyway, so it's to concordia, so it's to make wood smooth, to smoothen out inequalities. So that is concordia. And look what she does with that rope. You see, she holds that rope in her hand, and she gives it to the people there. So you see, it's one rope that connects. Now there is a little, you could say, a pun with concordia. So in Italian, a rope is corda. So concorda is, with the rope. But concordia, the Latin word, comes from heart, cor. So, doesn't come from rope. But, we don't know if he wanted to refer to also to the rope with that. But you see here, the rope is given to the people, and it's who represents the people. So here we have 24 persons. And if you look carefully, they are all holding that rope. You see, because of course, in order to have a good government or a prosperous city and a just city, everybody has to be on the same page, or everybody has to hold the same rope. And here you see 24 people. Now, these are not just any people. These are the 24 representatives of the public institutions. So we know that in those days, so we are talking, the 1330s, 1340s, you had the government of the nine, but then there were also, for example, 4 people who were in charge of the finances, and then you had the representation of the nobility, so the knights as they called them, then you had the captain of the people. So there were 24 public not institutions, but 24 public representatives, you could say, representatives of the people. And you see in front, they are a little bit better dressed. So those are the noble people, but then you have all kinds of people. So there were also representatives of the merchants, for example. I have some details. You see, one has forgotten to shave, for example, but there is old and young, you see. So they all represent the people. And so here, just to tell you where we are. So on the left, you had this justice, and then underneath Concordia, she's giving this robe, and these 24 people, they march towards this person on the right-hand side, this huge person that is sitting on a throne, who all holds the other end of the rope. So you see, it's all connected. And that character is, that is the city of Siena. It's the government of Siena. And so you see this, it's like a noble, strong person. You could say wise. The little hat he has, it was the typical hat of the judges also. That was made in a special kind of fur of a gray squirrel. And so that was a typical hat. But on the other hand, he has a kind of scepter, of course. The robe he's wearing is half white and half black. Well, that is, of course, a direct reference to the coat of arms of Siena. The coat of arms of Siena is, here, see, it's half white and half black. So everywhere you go in town, that's the coat of arms. So it's not one with lions and eagles and so on. It's very simple. It's half white and half red. So you see, it's a direct reference. Oh, yes, and I have another. So, and it was not unusual in these days to represent, the government of Siena like this. You see, these are little, very small wooden paintings that were the covers of the financial books. So I told you there were 4 people who were in charge of the finances, and so this institution was the Bikerna. And so the Bikerna, they had all the archives with everything that the town government spent in money, all the entrances of the taxes, tax income. I mean, everything that came into the city treasure, and everything that went out. So really the whole financial thing. And they are preserved. You can go and see them. So the archives of the Bikerna, they are open to the public on certain days, and it's really interesting. Of course, you can't see them all, but there is a kind of exhibition where you can see the most interesting ones, because you can see all these little paintings. They were made by, also Lorenzetti made some, Simone Martini made some. So the important painters they contributed to make these paintings, and often they represent some historical event or some, like the left one, you see, he also has a shield, a scepter, and at his feet, the left one, he has a symbol of Siena that I'm going to show you. It's the she-wolf. But let us go back. So here you can see this head. You can see the shield. On the shield, if you look well, there is a Madonna. The Madonna, because since the year 1260, so 70 years earlier, the town of Siena, the city of Siena, had been voted to the Holy Virgin. So had been consecrated to the Holy Virgin. 1260, there was a war with Florence. There was this famous Battle of Montaperti, where apparently a miracle happened and the Holy Virgin was seen. She protected the town. And so the victory was of Siena, and Siena attributed this victory to the protection of the Madonna. And just have to check the time. But so you see also there are letters next to the head. So it's CS, probably Civitas, so the town of Siena, Civitas Senensis. Or it could also be Comune. so it's not really clear. And then CV is Civitas Virginis, so the town of the Virgin. What else is it? Siena. And then above this man, this bearded man, represents the government, the government of Siena, for the public good, for the comune, bene comune. And so above his head, there is charity again. You see, it's a bit similar to what we saw in this other painting. And so with a heart and with this pointed stick, red. Then this is faith, in white with the cross. And then we have hope, which normally is green. So I don't know if perhaps the pigments, sometimes perhaps it's the color, perhaps might be green. But it's of course difficult. These pictures don't reflect the real colors often. I mean, it's hard to see if it's green. But so this is hope, who there's this little head of Jesus Christ coming from the clouds. So these three virtues, the three theological virtues, are of course important also for the common good. And then beneath the feet of the government, there is the she-wolf with Romulus and Remus. So is this Romulus and Remus, or are these two children a reference to Senius and Ascius? So if you walk around in Siena, everywhere you will see the symbol of the she-wolf. That is a symbol of Rome, of course. The foundation of Rome. And Siena has this legend that it was founded by Senius, who was the son of Remus. When Romulus killed his brother Remus and became the first king of Rome, according to the legend, the two sons of Remus, which were Ascius and Senius, they fled. And they arrived in the area of Siena. And did they both found the town, or did Ascius then went, continued and then founded the town of Asciano, which is not very far. Anyway, so the name Siena, according to the legend, but it's a legend that was invented in the Middle Ages, was founded by Senius. And so a direct link to Rome, of course. The towns, the powerful medieval towns, they like to have a kind of foundation legend. Yes, you see here, beneath on the left of his foot, you see the rope. So the rope from the people goes. I don't know if I showed. Here you can see, under the scepter, there's the rope that goes to the people. Okay, then I continue. So this seated government, on the left, there are three virtues, and also on the right-hand side, there are three virtues. So the one on the right-hand side is the temperantia. So the temperantia, temperance, and she holds. I'm sorry. I have to start with peace. So on the left, we have peace. She's sitting in a quite odd position. That's a bit strange. She has an olive branch in one hand, but her feet are resting on an armor, and also beneath her pillow, there's an armor. So, war is set aside, and so there is peace. So this is the representation of peace. And here you can see how she's sitting on the armor. And yeah, okay. And then there is so the middle one is fortitudo, so strength, who is fortitude, who is often represented as a warrior. So really as weapons. And just below her, you see two soldiers. So that is fortitudo. And then you have the prudencia. So it's the prudence. Prudence is, she has three little lights. So it's like a lamp with three little flames. And you see it's written the past, the present, and the future. So the meaning of this is, of course, you have to look to the past and learn from the past, when you are in the present, so you can take decisions in the present to make a better future. And so this is what this little lamp means. And then on the other side, we have three other virtues. So magnanimity, so a big soul, you could say. So, you give without asking anything back or expecting anything back. So in one hand, she has a crown, and on the other hand, she has a plate with all gems, so she can distribute wealth without, having something back. And yeah, I'm sorry. You see the pictures. So in the middle, you have temperancia. So that is temperance. She has a sand clock. I really don't know how to say that. And on the right hand side, you have justice. Justice with a sword. A sword with a double. A double sword, in the sense that this can cut on both sides, because justice, is giving justice, but there's also duty. You also have to be aware of the duty. So, and below you have soldiers, and then you have some prisoners on the right. See, on the right hand side, you have prisoners. That is, so the good government has to respect, of course, and has to execute these virtues. And so the people who don't respect it, they are taken prisoner. So again, you see, from justice we go, but so it's these 24 people, members of the government, that have to, they have this rope that is connected with, this symbolical good, so the common good and the justice. And so we know that it represents that, because underneath there is a text. But now, yeah, so I will quote the text. So there is a whole text underneath that I couldn't show you. But so this is about this justice and the common good. So it says, this holy virtue, so the justice, where she rules, she induces to unity, so concord, the many souls of the citizens. And these citizens gathered together for such a purpose, they make the common good, the ben comune, the common good. And the common good is their Lord. You see, it's represented as a Lord. And he, in order to govern this state, chooses never to turn his eye from the resplendent faces of the virtues who sit around him. And therefore, to him in triumph are offered taxes, tributes, and lordships of towns, and therefore without war, every civic result duly follows. Useful, so the useful, the necessary, and the pleasurable. And that is what we're going to see on the next wall. So in the next wall, we're going to see the effects of the good government in town and in the countryside. Now, there wasn't a picture of the whole thing that was good enough. So that wall, it's a very long wall. And so the left half is there is a city represented that you can see. And it's also the city of Siena, you will see. And then you see on the right-hand side, you have a town wall and a town gate. And on the other side of the town wall, you see there is the countryside. So, and there are people coming in and there are people going out. So there's a mutual exchange of activities. And oh yes, and also look on top. You see on top of this huge fresco, just underneath the ceiling, you could say, there are also decorations. You see, for example, on the right-hand side, there is the moon. In the middle, we have the symbol of summer. So you see, there are the four seasons. There are planet gods, and I'm coming to that also later on. But so here we see the town. Now, this is a town. It's a busy town. It's a wealthy town. There's a lot going on. So there's, for example, trade. There are lessons. There's a teacher. So some details, for example, there's a bride. You see on this white horse, there is a bride dressed in red, and she's taken, she's taken to probably to the wedding, to the groom. She's accompanied by a lady. She has this beautiful white horse. So that is one, one activity. On the right-hand side, you can see some people with, with a parcel and some children in front of probably a shop. Then we can see here on the left, you can see some dancing ladies. You see, there are 10 ladies who are dancing. Now, in reality, I think they are doing this game that we did. I mean, we did when I was a child, we had this, you had to form, so you have to hold, the hands, and then you had to go under a bridge. So two people would make a bridge, and you had to go underneath, and then they would catch you. So there is also a song. I'm not really sure if that is it London Bridge? I mean, I'm not in English. I really don't know. But so that I think they are doing that, because you see, there is a lady there in between the hands of the other ones. Anyway, so here they are dancing. So you see, it's not only activity, economical activity. It's also pleasurable activity. There is leisure. Here we can see with other colors from another picture. Especially this lady. I think she is ready to go underneath this bridge, even if I think somebody is already imprisoned there. But it's on the left of the tambourine. And you see this lady with the tambourine, she's singing. She's really singing. But so she has a very interesting garment. So, I mean, there has been a lot written about this. It's a kind of dragonfly. So does it mean anything? It's almost like modern art. Somebody compared it to Klimt, because of Klimt. But anyway, so it's really very special. That's the least we can say. I mean, that he wanted to represent this detail. Yes, now I can come to what is above this scene. Above this scene, there is, unfortunately, I couldn't find something in color. There is Venus represented. Venus also with this kind of dancing position, or at least she does something with her arms. And she's represented in front of Taurus, of the constellation of Taurus, of the I don't think you say a you say Taurus. I don't think you say a bull. But so she's represented there. What is she doing there? So I already told you on that top level, which almost is decorative. You could say this is just decorative. And when I saw it last December, I went on the scaffolding to see it. There was no mention of it at all. I found that very strange, because it's something, people would prefer just, to forget it and to not mention it. But, we have to know. So everything that happens here, you saw, everything that happens in the city, the town government and justice, in the end, we here, on earth, we all submitted to a cosmic order. And that is something that, of course, the ancients, so the Greek and the Romans, they were very, into that and very aware of, but that had never been forgotten. You will see it during the Middle Ages. You will see it a little bit everywhere if you pay attention. So, the seasons. The seasons, there are several activities with the seasons. And so these seasons, they happen, of course, in certain moments of the year. So the constellations, the planets, they are also very important. And also everything that happens here, is submitted to that. And here I have an illustration of this. I unfortunately, it's really hard to find the right pictures. But these are etchings from a calendar that was made 100 years later in the 15th century. Because that was the easiest thing I could find, because otherwise it would be too complicated. But for example, here on the left, you can see a chariot with Venus on her. And on the wheels of the chariot, you can see two constellations. So you see the scale and then the Taurus on the left. And so those are the two aspects of the day. So, Venus in Taurus, and then the Scale, and then the Taurus on the left. And so those are the two aspects of the day. So, Venus in Taurus, and then the Scale, and then the Taurus on the left. And so those are the two aspects of the day. So, Venus in Taurus, and then the Scale, and then the Taurus on the left. And so those are the two aspects of the day. So, Venus in Taurus is a representation of her day activities during the day. And so the scale is what, she does during the night. And so here, you see here, just above, these dancing girls, we have Venus during the day. And Venus during the day is connected to, so her aspect of also matrimonial love, of pleasure, but more chaste pleasure. So that is what it's linked to. So that is what they linked it to the Christian morality. But where am I? And so here you can see, so this was something that was living. And so from the Renaissance on, we will have then very clear representations. But for example, in front of Venus, we have the bad government, and we have Mars, Mars with war. And so here on the right hand side, we have Saturn. You see Saturn, here they call it the children of Venus. You see, they are, they're music, they're dancing. You see what they're doing there. And then on the right hand side, but I also have to go more near to the screen to see it. Saturn, you see Saturn is linked to agriculture. And then we have, this is Mercury. Mercury is linked to the trade activity, to the merchants, for example. So we also have Mercury there. So you see, it's not just some decoration, as some people might want to represent. Here we go back to the city. What is happening here on the left, you see a shoemaker. So that is interesting with all the details. And then next to it, you have a teacher. You see, there's a teacher with pupils. And then we have this detail, you see, of this man who goes to the shoe shop with his donkey or the mule. This is the shop of textile. I see on, I don't know exactly what he's looking at. I mean, if he's looking at the person in blue, that is a money changer. So unfortunately, I couldn't find all the details. And then they're building, in a prosperous city, they're constantly building. And here you see the builders, the masons. These are very nice details because, first of all, you can see their scaffolding. So their scaffolding is not from the ground. So it doesn't start from the ground. So there were these holes that you sometimes can still see in the buildings. So sometimes these holes were for this type of scaffolding. So, it's not that immediately they would build, 5 floors. Sometimes they added one. And then there's a little loggia, you see, with this beautiful painted wall. It's, it's a beautiful little detail. These paintings, it's not the only one, but in this time, so the painting of these days with all these details, they give us, of course, a view on what life was like. And also here, for example, a lot of people, they always ask me when they see a medieval town, they always say, what are all these iron things next to the windows? Well, that was to put these wooden sticks, wooden poles in them. I mean, not a vertical pole, but a horizontal pole. And then from there, you see, well, here the poles are not there, but they would hang all kinds of stuff outside. You see, there are no windows as we have today. There are wooden shutters, but it's not that everybody had, beautiful windows. So it was all open. Here again, on the left, you can see this little kind of wooden extension. Here again, you see these wooden poles. You have the Cathedral of Siena, you see? The dome and the bell tower. This is the Cathedral of Siena today. So, yep. Yeah, here again. And look what is underneath that little wooden balcony. You see the detail, really the detail. And so when you're standing there on the scaffolding, you can really see it very well. I mean, when you're on the ground, it's less obvious, but so, yeah. Beautiful little details. Here we are next to the town wall. There's also a lot of activity. You see animals coming in, animals coming out, shops, merchants, and then hunters going out. Here there's a little detail. See the mules. I mean, there's a lot of activity. It's very busy, but it's all good. It's prosperous. And so that is, of course, the effect of the good government. So if the governors, they respect justice, they respect all the different virtues, and they work for the common good, the result is this prosperous town. Here again, you see there's things hanging from the window still today. I mean, perhaps not in Siena, but if you go more to the south, in the villages, you will still, instead of going down the staircase, you can pull up things. That was something very common in villages until not so long ago. And oh yes, and here on the right-hand side, you can see the town gate. That's the Porta Romana. The Porta Romana that leads to the south. You can see again the she-wolf on the gate. This is the Porta Romana today. It's a huge, huge double gate. Okay, so here we have, again, a whole picture of the town. Now, a lot of commenters, they say, okay, this town, there's a lot going on because, of course, the painter had to put everything on this surface. So, of course, it's perhaps not realistic. Perhaps the shoe shop was not really next to the teacher, but he has to put it on a little surface. But still, people say Ambrogio Lorenzetti, he was very good in perspective. And here the perspective is not right. I mean, it's a very strange kind of orientation of the buildings. And so there are people who say that in fact, this whole painting shouldn't be called the allegory of the good government and the effect of the good government, but should be called a town in days of peace and war. So this, obviously, it's also peace. You see, there are no warriors, everything is well, everybody's happy, everything, again, is prosperous. And so we saw earlier that peace is represented, next to the common good. And so they say, if you now take the gaze of peace, she was like, slumped down, almost like on a couch. If you look from her point of view, so this is a picture that is made from the height of the eyes of peace. Now, of course, I couldn't find another picture. So if you look at it from this point of view, then it's a much better perspective. Then it's much more logical. Also, this town gate, the exit, the town wall, and also the countryside, it makes much more sense. Some people, they say, so that Ambrogio Lorenzetti, he painted this from the point of view of the piece. So that's something that we will probably never know if that is so, but that could explain the strange orientations of the buildings. And then we go out of the town. And so you see on the right-hand side of the town gate, you can see there's a floating or flying character. And this is Securitas, security. Security, on one hand, she holds a text. And on the other hand, she holds a hanged man, just to show, what happens if you don't respect the rules. And so here on the text, it says, when there is no fear, every man may travel freely, and each may plow and sow. So as long as this commune, so the government, shall maintain justice sovereign, then everything will be all right, because justice, she has stripped the wicked of all power. So that is the text. And also the text underneath the effects, so the town and the countryside, that is a direct warning to the government. So the nove, so the 9 people who were meeting in that room. So you who are governing, turn your eyes to justice, who is portrayed here. And she's crowned on account of her excellence. And she always renders to everyone his due. Look how many goods derive from her, and how sweet and peaceful is that life of the city, where this virtue, so justice, who outshines any other, is preserved. Justice guards and defends those who honor her, and nourishes and feeds them. And her light rewards those who do good and punishes the wicked. So with this text, Ambrogio Lorenzetti, and underneath he also signed it. So, I mean, he wrote this text. So, I mean, it's probably not that he invented it, but So you see the meaning, of course, the meaning is clear. And okay, so the countryside, what happens? Oh yes, okay, here. So what happens in the countryside? So here you see a group of hunters that are going out of the city, and then you see farmers that are going towards the city. I have some details. So here it's a better detail of these very elegant, elegantly dressed hunters. So these are wealthy people, but there's also a man with his pig. You see, this is a detail of the hunter. So you see, it's really, yeah, the details are really beautiful. And then you have this man with the pig, the typical pig from Siena. Look, this is the Cinta Senese. It's a race that was almost extinct in the 1960s, 70s, but they tried to reintroduce it and rebreed it, and so now it's a specialty. The Cinta Senese. Cinta means a belt, so a girdle, a belt. So that is the Cinta Senese. So they really are like this. And here you can see what happens in the countryside, and good harvest. Little dog, probably sniffing in the countryside. This is an inn, so a kind of a hostel. So you see there's the sign of Siena outside, white and black. And then, here it's a bit faded. And then there are travelers on the road. So that's here at the bottom of the road. You can see there's a priest, perhaps a pilgrim, because that Siena, that was also a reason of the wealth. There was the Via Francigena, one of the very important pilgrimage roads between Canterbury and Rome, passed through Siena. So very important, of course, for that. Here, there's a general view of, unfortunately, it's not really in a very good state. Some things have faded. There are some problems. So, but you see, here we have the four seasons at the same time, because here they are sowing, they're plowing, they're harvesting all at the same time. And this is summer that is represented. And here, for example, we have, it's not really clear, but there's a bridge on the right-hand side with some mules, and the mule on the right-hand side could be that he is. It's a typical representation that one wouldn't continue. Mules. I had two donkeys, and if they don't want to move, they don't want to move. And so, exactly underneath that, I showed you there is the moon. La luna and the children of the moon. And here on this one, we also have a bridge with a mule that doesn't want to continue. Now, this etching was made 100 years after. So, but those are ideas. Those are, ideas that are continuing to circulate. If you want to know more about the details of a medieval city, there is a very good book written by Chiara Forgoni. Chiara Forgoni, she wrote the book A Day in a Medieval City, but she also wrote a book specifically about all the details on those paintings I've just shown you. So, but I couldn't find it in English. I don't think it's translated, but perhaps it is. And so there, she wrote a book specifically about. So she doesn't go into the meaning of all of the painting, but in the shoe shop, she identifies all the tools. She sees in the wool shop, there are all the different activities around wool, the teacher. So she went into great detail, and she identifies all the tools and everything that you can see, all the objects that are there on that fresco. And then in front of the prosperous city in the countryside, we have the bad government. Unfortunately, that wall is in a very bad state. So there are a lot of things that are just missing. So they are lost. There we have winter, of course. And so we had spring and summer on one side, and on the bad government, we have winter. It seems that this is the first representation in art of falling snow, or at least from the Middle Ages. So I'm not sure if this is correct. And so this is the wall with the bad government. So you see there are huge portions that are missing. So there's certain things that we don't really understand also. And here you have to read from the right to the left. And that makes one a bit uncomfortable, you could say, because already you have to, normally you read from the left to the right. So here you have to go from the right to the left. And what can you see? So on the right, you see this terrible kind of monster. That's tyranny. Here, you see tyranny represented as a devil with these horns, with fangs, and a bit cross-eyed also. So cannot see very far. And then also here we don't have virtues, but we have the vices. So for example, on the left, we have avaritia, so avarice. So, you see in her left hand, she has like a clasp. And in this clasp, there are two wallets, two money bags, but they're closed. No, they're closed. You won't be able to open them. That is avarice. She won't give the money. And then on the right-hand side, we have vanagloria, so vain glory. Vanity is also vain. You can't do anything with a mirror. And you see, she has a branch in her hand, but that is dry. It's dry because it doesn't bring you anything prosperous. And then, yes, here we have the monster, the tyrant. He has his feet on a black goat. The goat is a black goat is symbol of luxury. So it's not really a good thing. And then on the right-hand side, you can see fury. Fury, this half animal, so boar, a wild boar, a horse, a man. And here on the top, there is pride, superbia, pride, with a yoke, the yoke to make people obey. Oh yes, here is avarice. You see, she doesn't look really young and really good. And also the wings, you see, it's almost the wing of and her claws, her hand is like a claw. So all bad things. This also has horns. And this one has this dried branch, and she only looks at herself and not certainly not for the common good. And then we have the vices also. There are three on the left and the right of tyranny. So here we have fear, fear. So it's a lady who presents a snake to a baby. That's not really a nice thing to do. So it's governments who want to induce fear to people. And so that's not a good thing. And then we have the proditio, so that is a fraud. So on one hand, it looks like a lamb, but on the other end is a scorpion. So be aware. So this is fraud. And then we have yes. So the other one is also, now I have to look back who the third one is, because now I can. So the I also looked up all the so yes, okay. So the middle one is deceit. So deceit. So she does as if it does as if it is a lamb, but it's a scorpion. And the other one is fraud. Fraud that has also, you see the foot. The foot is a kind of claw. So you have, fear, betrayal, or deceit, and fraud. And then on this side we have fury. And then we have division, and division is very, well, it's almost funny because she cuts herself, she cuts herself in two. And you see here, she's also dressed in the colors of Siena, but in a vertical way. You see, not horizontally, but in a vertical way. And then we have war with this black shield dressed in black. That is war. And then underneath tyranny, we have justice, but justice here, she is a prisoner. She is bound, and you see the two plates of the scale. There are, they have fallen on the ground. So, and on the right-hand side of justice, we have probably bad justice. We have two people. It's hardly visible, but so there are two people who are fighting over a baby. And that is, of course, perhaps, oh, not of course, it's perhaps a reference to Solomon. Solomon, who was a wise man who did good justice, but if he had done it bad, they would have ripped the child to pieces or cut it in two. And so you see, there are not really nice things happening there. And then on the left, you have the town. But of course, this town is not well maintained. All the shops are closed, except for one, and that is the one that sells armors. And here you have the bride. You remember the bride dressed in red? Here the bride is taken away. There is a killed person there at her feet. Is it the husband or the groom? Here she's taken away. Will she be raped? I mean, that is something we don't know. And also here you see the buildings are not repaired. They're not maintained. It's almost as if the colors also are, dripping away. And here, of course, the buildings are broken. There's the shop. And then on this side, we have timor, fear. So in front of security, we have fear. And fear, she is saying, timor, if you want personal goods, so not the public goods, but personal goods in this land, where justice is submitted to tyranny. So here you can have personal goods. So if you do personal good, then tyranny will justice will be subjected by tyranny. And here you can see the countryside here, but you see burning houses, not fertile at all. But unfortunately, you see there's a whole part missing. But so even if you are there, it's very hard to see because there's. But anyway, so this is not a good place to be. And I see that already. Time is up. But so here we have the tyrant. But I cannot end with such a face. So let's end with the face of peace. Peace, who is, what is she doing? So the other ones are all straight, all quite formal, but peace is not. Peace, you see, with one hand, she is holding her, she's really like resting. You saw she's resting on a kind of pillow, and underneath there are the armors. So could it be that she's looking? The other ones are all looking towards each other or towards the central figure, but she's looking away. So is it true that she's looking is she dreaming of the prosperous city, of the good countryside? So that could be. Now the current restorations, so there will take some time, but so there could be also some new answers also. So let's wait for those. Yes, so here this was the third presentation. So next week I will be back with something completely different, with a small painting, with the detail of a painting. So a painting has been cut up. So I'll look forward to that one because, discovering something new is always nice. So World Virtual Tours is only based on donations. So if you thought it was worth it, you're welcome to leave something. Thank you in advance. And now I will go back to the Zoom, and then I will open the chat. So normally the chat should be open. So I don't know if questions. Anyway, so if you are in Siena and you have the opportunity to go in scaffolding, do it. Do it because you have obviously to pay the entrance to the. You have to pay the entrance to the museum, and then you have to pay for it, of course. But it's really worth it. Okay, so the first painting should be available. It would be the Free Academy. I think it's there. So the one painting was the Pala Baglioni, made by Raphael. So should be there. Should be there. Yes, an hourglass. Oh, yes, I couldn't find the word. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't find the word. Yeah, normally I try to rehearse these things in English because it's not always easy. But today I realized that the pictures were so bad I had to find all other pictures. Yeah. Could I give it to all? Could I give this talk to all the governments in the world? Yeah, sure. Oranges and lemons is the game. I didn't. Yeah, I don't know that one. Yeah, I didn't know. I know it in other languages, but not in. Yeah, I don't know it in English. Oranges and lemon. A yardstick. Yardstick is a length measure. Yes. Um, it is remarkable that they still exist because so in San Gimignano you still have one room, but for example the other walls were repainted later on. Also in Florence. In Florence you also have paintings for the good government and so on, but they are later, from later dates. So that's very interesting that we have this one in Siena. A planer. So the tool on Concord is a planer. Yes, that's what I found as a translation. Well, I didn't invent this. It was Ambrogio Lorenzetti who painted this. Okay. And so Thursday I will be in Assisi inside the St. Francis Basilica. And next Monday I will have the last painting, which is something different. I already told you. Yeah. And I will be in Siena on the 2nd of February. I will be in Siena. And I haven't decided on which district I will do, but yeah, I have to look that game up. Here comes a chopper to chop off your head. Oh, I know it in other languages is that they close the gate. They close the gate. Okay. Okay. Yes, and I will be also be in the so in the 1st of February I will be in the Etruscan Museum of Perugia this time. So I got permission for that as well. Okay, so well, it was painted in a room that was not really available for the public. This was a room for this government. At least when it was painted. When it was painted, it was the text is it's directly addressed to the government, to these people, these 9 people of the government. You who are governing. So did they understand? Well, I think so. I think so. Somebody is creating this in 3D wooden sculpture. Wow. Okay. Okay, so well, then I thank you. Thank you for attending, and hope to see you soon, somewhere virtually in Italy. Okay, thank you. I say goodbye to everybody. Goodbye.